Hello, and welcome to section 2.8, chapter 2, section 8, which is solving percent problems. So we are going to begin on textbook page 155, which is one page earlier than I usually start. So I just want to make sure that you're lined up with the correct page now. On 155, it says, for vocabulary setup, that a proportion is an equation that shows two ratios are equivalent. A percent proportion, one ratio compares a part to the whole. The other ratio is the equivalent percent written as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So we went ahead and underlined the important information here. And then it says, how do you compare part and whole? So with the fraction, it shows you that you have 2/5 or 2 out of 5. So that's part to whole. And what do you call the part? So this part on top that they're talking about, they're asking you about the numerator. So you want to go ahead and put numerator there. And then it says, what about the whole? What do you call the whole? And we should know that that's the denominator. Then in the next sentence, it says, using the information in the first ratio, fill in the others. So this is just those other two ways to write the ratios that we talked about when we were in the ratios chapter in chapter 1. And then the last one it talks about is the percent. So 2 to 5 is equal to what percent? So remember that percent is per 100, and so we put it over 100, and then we solve for the blank. So we're looking at 5 times 20 is 100, and so on. So you get 40% of 5 is 2. And you just don't want to forget that that's where we got that fraction from, was percent or per 100. But for the real world link, it says Kara is on her school basketball team. She has completed 9 out of 12 free throw shots successfully. Write this ratio as a percent and as a fraction in simplest form. All right, so percent as a fraction. So they want it as a percent and a fraction. So the first thing you want to do is set it up as a part to whole, which I've done here. 9 is the part and 12 is the whole. And remember, they said they wanted it in simplest form. So you need to simplify by dividing by 3. And you get 3/4, which is the fraction. So that satisfies the first part of the question. Then they want you to turn that fraction into a percent. I went ahead and divided out the original number here. I'll show you both ways. Okay, so I went ahead and fixed that because I want to show you how to set it up as a proportion with the 100. So now you take the 3/4 and we're going to set that up next to 100, and we multiply by 25 to get to 100. So then we do the same on the top. So we get 75 over 100, which is 75%. So our two answers are 3/4 and 75%. In this next section, the first question says for number 1, 10 is 25% of what number? They're showing you these examples using a double number line. So I'm going to start off by using both number lines like they do in the textbook, and then I'm going to, in the last example, show you a modified double number line so that you don't have to draw both number lines. So what I've done here is the first step in the double number line, which is to draw your first line. Now, if you'll notice up in the top left corner, I wrote a red percent sign. That's so that I could remember that this was my percent line. So I always start with 0% and 100%. The marks that you make in between are going to sort of depend on what the numbers are that you have. So when it says 10 is 25% of, then I know that I need to break these up into 25%. So it's not always going to be by whatever number it was in there. Like if it were, 30%, then I would know I would probably need to break it up into tens. So what I'm saying here, though, is your first number that you're going to splice it into is 50%, which is going to be right in the middle. Then you have 25%, which is halfway between 0 and 50, and 75%, which is halfway between 50 and 75. So once you've done that, now you're going to make your purple number line. And you'll notice I put a red number sign in the top left corner. That's to indicate that this is the number that they gave us. So the number 10 is what we're going to represent on this. And since 10, it's saying that 10 is 25%, we're going to go ahead and first show that 10 as being 25%. So if you look up at the top number line, I went ahead and put a purple highlight right there. And so 0 to 25% is equal to 10. So now you're going to make the same tick marks that you did on the top ones. So we need one for 50, one for 75, and one for 100. And for each of those chunks, we put another 10 there because this is sort of like our bar diagrams. So now we have 10 is 25% of the number 40. because when you add 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, then the whole number that you get is 40. In the next example, it says, country music makes up 75% of Landon's music library. If he has downloaded 90 country music songs, how many songs does Landon have in his music library? So you want to ask yourself first, too, what did they give me? Did they give me the part or the whole? Well, they gave me, it says he's downloaded 70 country music songs. I'm sorry, 90. So what they're saying is that 90 is equal to 75%. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw my percent number line. Whoops. Whoops. Let's get back there. Sorry about that. So I'm going to draw my percent number line. I'm going to label it 0 and 100%. And again, because it's 75%, we can do this in 25% increments. So we're going to label 50, 25%, and 75%. Once we've done that, we're going to make our second number line. I've used purple again, and notice I indicated that this was the number. So that's the little red number sign there. So then I'm going to break it again into the 25, 50, 75, 100 marks. So notice I've got 1, 2, 3 marks inside of the 0 and 100. So they match. It's very important that they match up. And then I'm going to look back at the problem, and it says country music makes up 75%, and that 75% is equal to 90. So 90 is equal to 75%, which I've written down in the bottom corner. And now they've given you the part, and you need to find the whole. So now I'm going to put a bracket around 75%. That's how I put that bracket around those 3 chunks, 1, 2, 3, because they said that 75% is equal to 90, and I'm going to put the number 90 there. Then I need to ask myself, how can I split this 90 into 3 chunks? So 90 between the 3 is going to give me 30 per chunk. 30, 30, and 30. So that gives me the total of 90, 30, 60, 90. Now, I'm sure you can see where this is going. If each one of these is 30, then that means that last one is 30. So now that you know the last one, you know the total number of songs in his music library are going to be the 90 plus the 30. So you get 120 songs. You want to go ahead and pause the video now so that you can work on letters A, B, and C. Welcome back. Hopefully you were able to get through A, B, and C. So A says 30 is 50% of what number? So we're going to first start with our number line and label it as our percent line. Label it 0, 50, and 100. Now technically we could have left out the 25% and 75%. I put it there for consistency, but because they're asking you or giving you the 50%, you could have just done 0, 50, 100. So now we're going to do our number line, and remember 30 is equal to 50%. So that's why we put a 30 there for the 50% chunk. And then if the first 50% is 30, then that means the second 50% is 30. So now you can double check, just make sure you've got 2 50% there, which is the full 100. And then you've got 30 for the 50. And now you're just going to add those two together, and you get 30 is 50% of 60. All right. B says 60 is 20% of what number? You want to pause the video? All right, so the first line that we're drawing here is the 0 and 100%. So what I've done here is I'm going to be splitting this into my 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Now this is what I was talking about when I was saying you want to wait to figure out what those middle chunks are going to be, because if we had split this into 50 and then we split it into 75 and 25, it would have been hard for us to use this as a number line. So when we saw that they gave us 60 as 20%, we knew we had to break these into 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. So that's what we've done here. Now what I'm going to do is the modified number line. So instead of having 2, I'm just going to use the top for my percent and the bottom for my number. So now it tells us that 60 is equal to 20%. So when we have that 0 to 20%, that's where we're going to put the 60. And then if that one is 60, then that means all the other chunks are 60. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to multiply 60 times 5. So you find the answer 60 is 20% of 300. For the last problem on these examples, it says Peyton spent 60% of her money to buy a new television. If the television cost $300, how much did she have? So you want to ask yourself, are they asking me for the part or the whole? they're giving you the part. They're saying that 60% of our money is equal to $300. So they're asking you for the whole. So what you're going to do is say 60% is equal to 300. You want to pull that piece of information out right away because that's what they've given you. So then you can use your number line again, percent on top, 0 to 100. Oops. Then we've broken it into 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Now keep in mind the reason I did that was because we're going to be looking at 60%. So we need to have this in increments of 20 so that it's nice and even. And then on the bottom, we're going to do our numbers there. So it says if 60% is equal to 300, so 20, 40, 60, this is the problem where you need to go, okay, 300, put a bracket around it, and go, okay, I have 3 chunks, and I have 300 to give out those 3 chunks. So I'm going to take the 300 and divide it by 3 chunks, and that gives me 100 per chunk. So then I'm going to label my number line with that. 100 on the bottom, 100, and 100. So if those 3 are 100, you can probably predict that the next 2 will also be 100. And they are. And then all you need to do is add together your 300 and 200, and you get a total of 500. So she started with $500. All right, in this section, we're going to be using the percent proportion. So it gives you the it gives you the part, which is 24, and then it gives you the whole, which is 32. Now, this is much easier. In the book, it says 24 over 32 is equal to 75 over 100. It's not exactly easy to see that relationship when the numbers aren't simplified. So the first thing that I went ahead and did was simplify 24 over 32, and I did that by dividing out the 8. So we end up with 3/4. Now that we have 3/4, it's easier for us to put it up next to 100 and compare it that way. So this is a different strategy other than the number line, and this is showing you how to set it up next to 100. So how do you get from 4 to 100? You multiply by 25, so you're going to do the same on top, and you get 75. So 75 per 100 is 75%. The first example, number 3, excuse me, on this page, says 15 is 30% of what number? So they want you to use the part to whole method that they just showed you. So 15 is, and then you have a blank block because you don't know what the whole is. And then they want you to set it up equal to 30 per 100. And that's literally per cent. So that's where we get that from. And we want to go, okay, we have to go from 30 to 15. Normally you're used to going from 15 to 30, but the problem is you have the information on the right-hand side, so you're going to kind of work backwards. So 30 to 15, you had to divide by 2. So to get the answer that goes in the block, you divide by 2, and we get 50. So 15 is 30% of 50. In this example 4, it says 225 is 75% of what number? So the first thing that we're going to do is identify the part or the whole, and in this case they gave us the part. So we're going to do 225 over the whole, which we don't know. Then we're going to set that up next to the 75%. Now that 75 that I put on top of the 100 came from the 75% in the problem. So now to get from 75 to 225, we multiplied by 3. So then we'll do the same thing on the bottom, multiply by 3, and we get 300. So 225 is 75% of 300. You want to pause the video now and try D through G. All right, so for D it says 75 is 15% of what number? So again, we're going to do 75 as the part and the empty space is the whole. And then we're going to set it up equal to 15 per 100. And then we're going to figure out that 15 times 5 gets us to 75, and 100 times 5 gets us to our number, which is going to be 500. For E, it says 9 is 36% of what number? So we set it up again. Part to whole, 9 over the block is equal to 36 per 100. So 36 per 100. Then we're going to say to get from 36 to 9, we had to divide by 4. So to get from 100 to our answer, we have to divide by 4, which gives us an answer of 25. So 9 is 36% of 25. For F, it says 7 is 70% of what number? So identify the part to whole again. The part is 7. The whole we don't know. Set it up as 70 per 100. Then we ask ourselves, how do we get from 70 to 7? So we divide by 10, which means we do the same thing on the bottom, divide by 10. And that's when we get 10. So our answer is going to be 7 is 70% of 10. For G, it says 7 is 35% of what number? So again, you are going to identify the part, set it up over the unknown whole, set it equal to 35 per 100, and then establish that relationship between 7 and 35. So to get from 35 to 7, you're going to divide by 5, so then you follow suit on the bottom, and you get an answer of 20. So the answer should read, so 7 is 35% of 20. The last example that's going to be on textbook page 158 is the word problem, and it says, before 1982, pennies were 95% zinc and 5% copper. If 100 pennies minted in 1980 had an approximate mass of 15 grams of copper, what is the total mass of 100 pennies? So the percent that they gave you, they said 15 grams of copper is equal to 5%. That was the part. So you're going to set that up over the unknown whole, like we've been doing. And then 5% literally means 5 per 100. Then you're going to establish that relationship. To get from 5 to 15, we multiply by 3. So to get from 100 to our answer, we multiply by 3. So the total mass of 100 pennies is going to be 300 grams. And then we circle our answer. All right, so now hopefully you've done well with your examples. Now you want to go ahead and complete textbook page 158, numbers 1 through 5, and then rate yourself before looking at the next section. So I look forward to our next class session.